What's up, everybody? Good afternoon. I know I said I wasn't going to make another video today, but as it turns out, today is actually a very special day. And you might be wondering, why is today a special day? It's just the second of 3 days we're having this mandatory minicamp. It's mid-June. Why is today special for the Seattle Seahawks? Well, I'll tell you why. June 12th. 2024 represents an interesting milestone for the Seattle Seahawks, or at least adjacent to the Seattle Seahawks. So, if you look on screen right now, you will see that I have an article pulled up that was written and posted right after the Seahawks released Jamal Adams and Quandre Diggs. So, you guys probably remember this. It happened this offseason. It was one of the most anticipated parts of this offseason. It was expected to play out this way for many people. It was anticipated that we would go this direction, and then it happened. Now, this article was posted March 5th, 2024. March 5th, and it is now June 12th. So it's a little bit complicated to do the exact calculations here, and I'm not going to ask any of you guys to do it, so I'm just going to go ahead and spell it out for you. It has been exactly, as of today, 100 days since Jamal Adams and Quandre Diggs have been released by the Seattle Seahawks. So these guys have been free agents for 100 days. And it's that part that is so interesting to me here and why I'm making this video, because you're probably still wondering, like, okay, well, why does that matter to us? It matters to me, at least. It might not matter to you because this is all in the past now, but I can't help but observe that we are now 100 days into these two players being free agents. And when I say that they're free agents, well, it means they haven't found another team. Nobody has signed them. So I can't help but think about, how does that reflect on the Seattle Seahawks? How does it reflect on their thought processes? How does it reflect on their personnel decisions and their beliefs about the players that they had? That you can go to Wikipedia right now. Jamal Adams, currently a free agent. Quandre Diggs, free agent. How is that? Now, look, Jamal Adams, that one's easy, right? Like, I think we all kind of get this. Jamal Adams, very injury prone. Like, very, very injury prone. You get him, you're just hoping you can get like half a season out of him. Potentially toxic. There are certainly people out there, and I believe teams out there, that would view him as a toxic presence on their team. They don't really want to mess with that, and I'm not going to say anything too strong one way or the other about that, but I can certainly see why they would think that, with the way that he behaved on his way out here in Seattle. A player who certainly, at best, fills a very specific niche as an NFL player, who you can't just plug and play into any defensive scheme and expect to have good things. And by the way, even when he is healthy, the play you get out of him is just okay. And it wasn't that long ago that he was the highest paid safety in NFL history, so he's also probably asking for a decent amount of money that no team is going to give up. And if he ends up getting offered some tiny contract, which is what he deserves at this point, he'll probably just say, that's not really worth it for me. I'd rather retire and go count my money. So the Jamal Adams thing, okay, that makes a little more sense. Like, his career, very good chance that it's just over now. And I don't think that should surprise anybody when you put all the things together in the blender, right? It's just too much. And he is a long way away removed from the good stuff that he did in this league, the special stuff, the stuff that made us trade for him several years ago. Like, there was a time where, yeah, he was considered to be that impactful of a player, that important of a player, that elite of a player. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend like those times didn't exist, but it's also so long ago. So this one, okay, I kind of get it. But at the same time, I'm thinking about this offseason, and I'm thinking about the circumstances behind Pete Carroll getting fired. And I know he technically didn't get fired, but yes, he did. And I'm thinking about that. And I'm also kind of considering the fact, the possibility, the theory that Jamal Adams was kind of the hill that Pete Carroll died on that ended up losing him his job. And I don't know if it's true or not. None of us do. But there are a decent number of people out there who believe, with good reason, I think, that the reason, or at least one of the big reasons why Carroll got canned was because he decided to go to bat for Jamal Adams and his desire to keep him, and Jody Allen wasn't having it, which is why they ultimately decided to do what they did. So this is the guy our former coach was willing to die on a hill for. Potentially. We don't know. But the Quandre Diggs part of this is the one that really kind of, I think, symbolizes things. And I'm not here to hate on Quandre Diggs because he was a very good player for us for the first several years that he was here. I don't think there's any doubting that. He came in here replacing Earl Thomas, more or less. I know that the timeline isn't precise, but he was basically the replacement for Earl Thomas, and he did a really good job making people kind of forget about the sting of losing Earl Thomas. He wasn't as good as Earl, but he was really, really good, and he filled his role very, very well, was an excellent ball hawk, really did a good job taking away deep zones, really did a good job acting as the last line of defense. And then we decided to give him a big contract extension after a devastating injury in these last 2 years. It didn't feel like it was terrible, but it didn't feel like we were getting our money's worth. And Quandre Diggs was one of many Seahawks players that sparked intense and fevered and polarized discussion in this fan base, because there are people out there, and I've seen them, people who I know work very, very hard at this football thing, who work very, very hard trying to study film and really understand what they're seeing and really try to understand this game, who swore that even last year, Quandre Diggs was one of the 3 to 5 best free safeties in the league. He was an all-pro caliber player because of what he took away deep down the field. And then there were the people who thought he was terrible. There were the people who thought he was completely useless because he was a bad tackler, which, I tend to, I don't know, maybe it's the Aristotelian in me, but I kind of found myself in the middle of all these things. I didn't think he was terrible. I don't think tackling is that big of a deal for a free safety, or it shouldn't be. But I also thought that the ball hawk skills had slipped to the point where I wasn't really sure if he was even a Pro Bowl safety anymore. So I did kind of want to move on here. But over the last, I want to say 4 years, I saw a tweet recently that listed the players on offense and defense that had played the most NFL snaps over the last, I want to say 4 years. Quandre Diggs was right at the top of the list. Now, part of the reason why that is because our defense has been bad for the most part, and they've been on the field a lot, and the offense has mostly been pretty good over the last 4 years, but it's also been bad on third down, which leads to punts, which leads to more possessions the defense has to play. You guys get it. So, Quandre Diggs, who has been as big a presence on this defense as anybody over the last several years, he's out there. Nobody wants him. Do you see what I'm saying here? These guys who were supposed to be the backbone of this Seahawks defense, and by the way, are guys that some people out there still defend to this day. Nobody defends Jamal Adams off the field, really, but Jamal Adams on the field, there are people out there who still think he's a good player, who still thought he did well last year. And again, there are plenty of people out there, plenty of film watchers, plenty of ball knowers, plenty of people who have, again, they've dedicated their life to this, who swear that Quandre Diggs is elite. And this Seahawks team has advocated for that by the fact that they keep playing him, the fact that they keep putting him out there. The old regime loved Quandre Diggs so much, they gave him a fat contract extension coming off a major leg injury. And now nobody even wants them as veteran depth. We have gotten through free agency, we have gotten through the draft, we've gotten through rookie minicamp, we've gotten through optional OTAs, we've gotten now started on the mandatory minicamps. And in the case of Adams, at least we're hearing a little bit of buzz, like, oh, the Seahawks are in contact with him. Oh, the Ravens kicked the tires on him, but nothing's happened. I haven't heard a thing about Quandre Diggs. Not a word. I haven't heard, oh, this team is kicking the tires on Quandre Diggs. Oh, this team had Quandre Diggs in for a tryout. Oh, this team is going to offer Quandre Diggs a minimum deal. Nothing. I've heard nothing with Diggs. I know he's on X, and I know he's still posting over there, having some fun. But in terms of like interest in signing Quandre Diggs, I haven't heard a word. And I feel like this, the point I'm trying to get to here is, I feel like this really symbolizes the shortcomings of the previous Seahawks regime and why it needed to end, and why I feel like we're better off now, because obviously it was the new regime that decided to move on from these two guys. If we had kept the old regime, maybe we would have moved off of these guys, but I'm not convinced. And in the case of Adams, I even wonder if that was the disagreement that sparked the firing. And I also honestly don't think that Carroll would have let go of Diggs. So this is always kind of an interesting test of a player, right? You might think the player is good, this player on your team. Maybe you think he's great. Maybe you think he's awesome. Maybe you think he's terrible. Maybe you think he's mediocre. Once that player leaves your team and is a free agent and can go anywhere, that's always kind of it's like a litmus test. Okay, let's see what the rest of the league thinks of this player. Maybe that'll help answer my questions about how good he is. Well, if we are turning to the court of public opinion of these other 31 NFL teams, these guys are worth nothing. These guys aren't worth a thing. Now, maybe one of them or both of them even gets picked up before the season starts, but 100 days these guys have been available. 100 days. And not only are they out there, but there's been minimal interest in even pulling them in. And again, we're not talking about huge money here necessarily. Maybe money's the hang up with Adams, but I doubt it's the hang up with Diggs. So I don't know. I don't know. I just look at this, and it really helps highlight the issue with the old regime. They fell in love with the guys that they liked. There were guys that they were into, and they kept them around, and they valued them, and they paid them because they were their guys. And it got to be it got to be like tunnel vision, where you couldn't see the objective value of the player or how good the player actually was. Looking at it now, it really feels like we talked ourselves into these guys being worth more than we thought. And in the case of Adams, I kind of get it because there are injuries and off-field stuff, but there's nothing like that with Quandre. Quandre's been healthy for 2 years. Quandre has no off-the-field concerns that I know of. So that's not happening here. At the very least, with Quandre Diggs, we can safely say the rest of the league is saying that guy is useless. That guy can't do anything that I think is worth bringing on. So the fact that the Seahawks valued him so much that they gave him that contract coming off a big injury and played him more than pretty much any other defensive player in football over the last several years, only for him to hit the market like this and have no one even sniff his direction. I don't know. It feels like something you can learn from. And I know we're not the only team that does things like this. I'm sure we're not the only team out there that falls in love with a guy and then they kind of get irrational about his value and irrational about how good they think he is. But it just really strikes me that a guy that we thought was one of our best players and most important players over the last several years, and even last year, I guarantee you that the defensive coaching staff and Carroll and Hurt and everybody else would have told you that Diggs was playing well, is not even getting sniffed. All right, see you guys later. Go Hawks. Maybe this video is a little mean-spirited to these guys, but I don't feel like it is. I feel like it's there's something to learn here. What do you guys think? Go Hawks.